Entrepreneurial Edge is brought to you by Business Banking from FNB, because small ideas can lead to big business. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Edge. I'm Chris Bishop. Now, we've had a lot of chat on this show about passing on the precious skills of the entrepreneur to the next generation. We've also talked about the hazards of running a family business. Now, here is a story that encapsulates both. The story of Chichi Maponya, the managing director of the Maponya Group. Now, the name Maponya is a powerful one in Southern Africa. It is a name that literally means business. Let's take a look at the patriarch of the entrepreneurial Maponya family, Richard Maponya.
Maponya Mall, a proud beacon in the Soweto skyline. As the man behind the 650 million rand shopping centre, Richard John Maponya is regarded as one of the most successful businessmen in South Africa. His road to riches, however, was not an easy one. The apartheid regime during the 1950s made it almost impossible for black people to enter the formal business arena.
The young lawyers, Mandela Tambo, attorneys, I said, look, I've got a problem here. I am applying for a license to open a store in Soweto, and these guys are turning me down. Can you represent me? The late Tambo opened my file, and then he handed it over to Nelson to represent me at court. And at that time, Nelson was a vibrant and very, very powerful speaker. And I thought, he would turn the tables against those guys. Because the way he was powerful, it was like he could talk and say, mountain, move, and get this side, and the mountain would move. But nevertheless, it was rather difficult to convince the powers that be. But however, they managed to get me a license to get into a business to sell what they call daily necessities. And when they said I should do that, I looked at what they said I could sell. I opted, to sell milk.
It might have been humble beginnings, but by the 1970s, his empire had grown to include various general stores, car dealerships and filling stations.
I looked around and I diverted and started getting into the garage business. I had my first garage called Mountain Motors. At Mountain Motors, we started selling petrol there, and it became the biggest filling station in Southern Hemisphere. We were selling more than 1 million liters a month. I applied for a motor dealership at Mountain Motors. The first General Motors dealership, and the first black General dealership in Soweto. In fact, in South Africa, because there wasn't any black person then who ever applied for a motor dealership.
On the 27th of September 2007, former President Nelson Mandela opened the Maponya Mall in Soweto. Mr. Maponya regards this project as the one he's most proud of.
A product that gave me a wonderful satisfaction, because it was a fight of 28 years when I kept applying to put up the mall there, got turned down, and I kept knocking at the doors. And everybody that I spoke to, they did not ever believe that you could put up a mall in a township and that mall becomes successful. They always said, oh, no. Black people will never buy in a mall in the township. Black people like the bright lights of the city, and black people would want to buy where they are employed. And I said, these people you're talking about are in actual fact the people who are making the malls in the city flourish.
During his entrepreneurial journey, Mr. Maponya has had to fight his way to where he is today. But what fueled him through the hard times?
Besides just making money, I also look behind me and say, you know, I'm blessed to at least put 3 meals at table. But is my neighbor also able to put a meal or two at table? And I always felt that whilst I'm making a little bit of money, I should also be in a position where I create job opportunities and make life worthwhile for our people. And the mall as it stands now, believe me, it has contributed so much in upgrading the lives of the people of Soweto.
Now in the studio with me I have the MD of the Maponya Group, Chichi Maponya, the daughter of Richard. Welcome. See your father there in fine form. What is it like to have this sort of titan as a father, as well as in some ways, I suppose, as a boss?
Thank you, Chris, for having me here. It's very difficult having to work with my father's, you know, as my boss. When I disagree with him on business issues and later in the evening at dinner table, he's still upset with me. And I have to remind him, excuse me, you're my father now and I'd like my dad back. But he's truly an inspiration and a hard worker and doesn't really take no for an answer, not even from me or any of us.
How difficult is it sometimes to draw that line between family and I'm sorry, this is business?
It's difficult, you know, but it's a juggle. It's work in progress. It's a fine line. There are personal issues. It gets very emotional, and because we are so close as a family, we don't go for days without talking to each other. I mean, we see each other daily. We talk daily. But in a way, I think the family side of things helps to smoothen the business side and the operation side, because when you don't agree, when you're upset, at the end of the day, you have to talk to them as family.
How bad can it be sometimes?
No, fortunately, not that bad.
Not that bad?
Not that bad. It hasn't been terrible to a point that we are not talking.
And just think a little bit about your father's humble beginnings in business. Now, he worked for a drapery company, if I understand.
Yes.
And I'm told that when his boss was transferred to a higher position,
yes,
back in the days of apartheid, he said, look, I'm sorry, you're not going to get any further than this, but I'll make you the manager.
Absolutely.
Thankfully, he did get further than that. But that experience of being, how it were, sort of oppressed in the old days, how do you think that shaped him as a businessman, an entrepreneur?
I think it's really strengthened his resolve. You know, he had to show that he can do it. It's not up to somebody else who can tell him how far he can go. He believed he had the ability to go further than the ceiling that he was told, this is as far as you go, you know? And he had to prove that for himself and for his peers. And I think he did that successfully, really.
Now, to yourself, I understand you started working in the family business when you were just a mere 6 years old.
Yes.
How was that?
Well, they say entrepreneurs are born, and I guess in this sense, it's true to the word. I was born behind the counter, literally. When my mom gave birth to me, she was at the shop working, and she had to go to the office at the back and give birth to me, and there it was. But 6 years down the line, I was working in the shop, and that is the environment within which we grew up with. It was a community environment. It was a place for gathering for the community people. Everybody in and around Soweto knew that if you wanted to see anybody that you hadn't seen in a long time, go to the Maponya shop. If you hang around there for about an hour, you're bound to see people you have not seen. So that was the spirit within which really I grew up. And I watched my parents work very hard, opening the shop at 6 a.m. But opening the shop at 6 a.m. means they had to be there at 4 or 5 to make, pack the shelves. And at that time, we didn't have meal that was pre-packed. So we had to weigh it and put into various sizes, price it, So there was all that prep work that went into it before the shop opened at 6 o'clock.
Now, in many ways, you're the matriarch of the family now, all these years later. Just what was it in those early days, you think, that actually drove you on, apart from, just seeing your parents working?
I think a lot of it was just my mom, the way she was so driven, the way she was a mother to us, the children. I've got 7 siblings, so it's 8 of us. The way she was a mother to the community, but she really worked so hard to make a difference in the business, to make sure that she grows the business from what it was to when she passed on. They were already very successful with a number of businesses in the Coca-Cola bottling plant, various supermarkets, food retailing, motor car retailing, and she had grown that business. And I think I could not let that legacy just go down to waste.
And your mother, I mean, she must have, that's the late Marina Maponya.
Yes.
She must have really taken it hard sometimes down the years, bringing up all you children and being an entrepreneur at the same time, because I presume she was equal partners with your father in the business.
Yes, she was. Yes,
How hard was it for her sometimes?
It was hard, but I think having a supportive partner in my dad, and he always prides himself that I empowered women long before the empowerment of women was fashionable as a term. But they were true partners. They supported each other, they encouraged each other, they corrected each other, they learned from each other. And I think my dad was a true pillar and a force that churned her on to reach for higher strengths and higher heights. And
as well as the hard work, there must have been some great light moments when you were growing up around the business. I mean, what do you remember of that?
My dad is a fun-loving person. They always referred to him as the teddy bear. Very strict, but also a great sense of humor. And my mom, I think, also picked up on the sense of humor, and we always had light moments around dinner table. We would always make sure that we steal just about an hour, leave the stuff at the shop, go home, have dinner, and come back and relieve the staff to knock off early, and then we would knock off later. But I mean, there were so many. I can't even think of one now that you're asking me. But we had really true, moments that we shared with both my parents, taking us to school. My younger sister always remembers when my mom was out of town and my dad had to be home with her, and we were at the shop working, and he had to cook. And it was supposedly his first time cooking, but he cooked up such a storm, and she was so chuffed, of course. And of course, he was such a crooner. How can I forget that?
We're going to talk a lot more about your father in the second half, but also we're going to talk about your role running the family business.